you join me today in a new room, which might be slightly echoey, sorry about that, but it has in it my gaming table, which I built myself. And I want to talk to you about dungeon scenery that I've been making, not because it's important to understand, but simply because I can. And I have made boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of this. This is here, just the finished stuff, and I've got at least as much, again, in unfinished terrain yet to store. So this is far more than common sense could ever justify. But I use it a lot. Do I? Well, I've used some of this for a roleplay game once. But I enjoyed making it, so that's all right, I think. Now, how did I make it? I'm not going to say much about how I made this terrain in this video, simply because there's another video that already exists in which I've given you probably as much detail as you really need to know. Nothing I've done here is extraordinary or super advanced. Really, this video is more to inspire people as to what they might make, because sometimes the hardest thing is thinking up a good idea of a thing to make rather than making it. But I shall start by saying something against modularity. Yes, modularity. It's one of the buzzwords within the dungeon crafting community, you know. Oh yes, people boast it's fully modular, they say, and they seem to believe that the more modular something is, the better. And by modular, they mean that it can be changed around in all sorts of different ways. Now, I made this setup over 20 years ago now, using Prince August molds. It's made up of loads of separate bits, and it's so modular. As long as you don't want diagonals or circles, you can make any square and right-angled layout within this confined area that you like. You see, you can take out every wall, and you can take out these tiny little bits from between the floor tiles to create little slots, and then you can put walls and doors and so forth, archways, into all those various slots. It's made out of plaster. It's heavy, took ages to make. I quite enjoyed making it. It was a satisfying job to make. But as a useful bit of floor plannery for a roleplay game, how many times do you think I have used it in over 20 years? For a roleplay game, I've never used this ever. It's far too much faff. It's really heavy, it's delicate, it's extremely difficult to transport, and it's an awful lot of faff getting it all set up, and of course rooms have to be immediately next to other rooms. Well, they don't have to be, but in order for it to look good, you sort of have to come up with a layout that fills the entire thing. Yes, if this is meant to be an underground dungeon adventure space, it's not a very practical one, and every time the plaster chips, which it will, it leaves a white mark which you then have to cope with or ignore. No, I don't think that this is the way forward. I have used it though for the backgrounds of photographs like these and these, which I took for Professor Dungeon Master when he was making a video about pig-faced orcs, and he never used them. Professor, I was hurt. Here we see some very modular bits of dungeon scenery by Dungeons and Lasers. And yeah, the walls are a little bit thin, but the quality is good. This is tough injection molded plastic, and it's so modular. You see, you can put it together in 1,000 ways, as long as those ways are all square and right angled. And yeah, you've got all these little clippy bits, and you see, if anyone actually picks something up, it all falls apart. And you're always looking for that little extra bit you need. For instance, I need a little peg to fill that hole. So can I find one? Well, maybe I can. So it's limited. And what am I likely to end up making with this? I'm very likely to end up making a pretty plain rectangular room much of the time. I got a strong feeling that I'm going to end up just gluing a lot of this stuff together permanently. Trying to use this in its full modularity is just such a pain. And so I created the simplicity that is the plain square room. One piece, all glued together, nothing to build, you just plonk it on the table. Now, perhaps in your scenario, it's a rectangular rather than square room, but how often does that really matter? Just get something on the table. Now, exits generally do matter. So, there we go, you just clip on a door and ta-da, you're ready to go. Oh, what's that? The door's in the wrong place. Oh, well, slide it along. It's now in the corner. Oh, what? It's the wrong width. Okay, right. So we have a narrower exit there. Oh, what? There's no actual doorway there. Oh, okay. Okay, right. Well, if you just want an archway, here we go. It's an archway with just deep black representing a hole through the wall. What's that? Oh, it's actually not a dungeon underground, but it's a building. So you'll probably want windows then. So we can put a window there and a window here. And oh, what's that? You want the window to be open? Oh, okay, right. There you go. Open the window. Sorted. The proportions of these dungeon marvels are based on what has become the industry standard in the 3D printing world. Walls are 1/2 inch thick, floors are also 1/2 inch thick, walls are 2 inches tall, so on the inside of a room a wall is 1.5 inches tall, taking into account the thickness of the floor. I think these proportions are quite good. They're very simple, they are standardized, and they're quite aesthetically pleasing and sturdy. There's this sort of staircase with a wall courteously around the edge so that adventurers do not fall unnecessarily to their deaths. And I made one that's the other way round as well. And if you put the two together, you've got a sort of platform so that a politician can go up and talk to the crowd. And of course, this can go into the corner of a room, like that. But what happens when you want to go up a level to the room above? What stops it just falling down? Well, you can make some of these. These are just blocks. They are 2 inches tall by 1.5 by 1.5, and ta-da! Spiral staircases. These are much harder to make than you might think if you want to do them properly and realistically. Indeed, I might do a video just about these one day. Anyway, if you stick them in one at the end of a corridor like this, it's a spiral staircase going up. And if you put one at the end of a corridor like this, it's a spiral staircase going up or down. And if you flip one over, this one goes up to the right, you see, but if you flip it over, it still goes up to the right. Yeah, that doesn't help. But you can put one on top of the other like that, if you want even more spirally madness. Now, we have a problem. How do we model a staircase that goes down into the table, which is in our way? Going up is easily, you can build up from a table easily, but going down, well, here's one possible way of representing a staircase going down into darkness. Now, if I show you that the ceiling, you see, is shaded. At the top, I've painted it quite a pale grey, but as it goes down, I've shaded it darker and darker and darker, and right at the back, at the bottom, I've just painted it with my blackest black paint that I've got. And I've got a flight of very shallow steps. Those steps have very, very low rises on them as they go down. They're just thin slivers, and each one has been painted slightly darker than the one next to it until they join the inky blackness. So, stairs going down into possible doom. But what if you want a stairway in a room? Well, there you go. There's a stairway going down into inky blackness in the corner of a room. And there's one in the other corner of the room. And if you really must, there's a double width one going down in the middle of the room if you really want. So what have I got here? Well, I've cheated. You see, we've got step going up before going down. So this is to be added into the room. So to get somewhere to go down from, I've had to step up. It's a little bit silly, but it's a compromise. And then with these very low-rise treads, you see that there are a lot of treads that are very, 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 very shallow. And each one painted a darker shade than the one below. And this is the thing which really sells it, an overhang. You see this bit here overhangs. And then that's the blackest paint that I've got. And I think largely, whoops, wrong way around. Largely because of that overhang, it reads as a stairway going down. I think that's good enough. Here we have staircases inside a corridor, at least inside a corridor if you think of them as inside a dungeon underground, or they could of course be on the exterior of a building, outdoors, and so the textured stonework here is useful. Now you'll notice that I've done two of differing heights. One is 1/2 inch taller than the other. The reason being that sometimes it's useful to have one that leads up exactly to the top of a wall of a dungeon. And then they'll lead on to whatever it is from there. But sometimes I want to go 1/2 inch further because I want to take into account the thickness of the floor of the room above. So there you go. Now that lines up better. Here we have a more complicated winding stair with lots of landing space for putting figures on. And I think the main reason I made this is I just liked the shape. It was a satisfying thing to make. I've cut away at an angle here, partly to suggest a sloping ceiling above the heads of anybody underground walking up this way. But also it just makes it easier to get my fingers in and handle any figures that might be in there. So there you go, a winding stair. But I didn't stop there, and I went one that winds back and forth. Oh, so many possibilities. And one of the reasons that I had for this is to link up with another room that I've made. And I didn't want the attackers to be able to bring up a battering ram. So if you have a winding stair like this, how are they going to get a battering ram up that, eh? Unless it's some sort of clever folding one. A T-junction inside another T-junction. In other words, anything I do in 5-foot standard width, I do in 10-foot standard width as well. You may notice that my standard 10-foot corridors are the standard height, whereas my 5-foot corridors I've made half an inch lower. It's purely a practicality thing. It's so much easier to get your fingers in and fiddle with figures that are in a narrow corridor if the walls are a bit lower. Crossroads, obviously. Y-shaped junction. I've made this angle here 90 degrees and this one 45 degrees. So the walls in between here to be beveled at the edge here. It's 22.5 degrees. And that's a 2x2 square. That's a 2x2. There's a 2x2 square. So that's 10 foot by 10 foot in the classic 1 inch equals 5 foot scale. And in the middle there you've got sort of a 2x2. Yeah, it's fudged a bit, but it's close enough for jazz. Sometimes stairs might lead up in a corridor, and so it's useful to have stairs that fit nicely in standard widths of corridor. But sometimes it's a dead end, in which case, oh no, some rockfall. There you go, cave-ins. I've also done a cave-in to put in the corner of a room, like this, you see, like that. And you'll notice that this room has a cobbled floor. Why? Well, partly it's just to be different and because I could, but also having rooms that look different like this, change the style, means that they could be referred to. So people could call this the cobbled room, which is a much better name for it than room 19. Will this passageway take our heroes to freedom? Oh no! Arrow slits! Oh, would you believe it? But wait! Flip them round and now you're on the right side of the arrow slits, which is a pretty handy place to be. Now, sometimes you want to get really fancy with a room, and a lot of dungeons have some fancy room which they describe lovingly and then get depicted by just the usual grey stuff. So yes, you can get fancy with a room too. Now, whether this counts as fancy or not is entirely up to you. On your map, it might just be a plain rectangle. Then again, when you place this down, your players might go, ooh, a fancy room. But in fact, if you're building underground, you're going to want to build all sorts of arches and barrel vaults, because otherwise the ceilings will collapse. So, is this a standard underground room or a particularly fancy one? Yours to decide. Fun to build, though. Here we see two ways of doing a right-angled corridor. In the middle, you've got the entire angle modelled, but at either side here, we've got just a bit left off one end, which can be more practical for leading straight into a room. But don't forget, if you're going to do it that way, you'll need a left and a right-handed version. Here are two different ways of doing a 45-degree angled corridor. You can either have this face here at 45 degrees to that face here and a 45-degree kink in the middle. Pretty obvious way of doing it. Or you can have this as the base unit and make a number of them. So they can be put together in different ways. So you could, for instance, link a room to another room at 45 degrees. Whoops, didn't put that very well. Like that, add doors. Or you could put two of these together, in which case they form a straight line, and then they will join at 45 degrees at either end, or you can put them like that and they make a 90-degree that joins at 45 degrees to two other things. And of course you can add on corridors in between. A capstan. Yes. Now I think this technically counts as dungeon furniture, which will be another video for another day. Now, I could connect two corridors of different widths simply like this. It's a little bit messy though, don't you think? You could have a connector piece like this, which does it in a stepped fashion, but the smooth sophisticates will like this nice ramped version. Oh, look how smooth that is. Huh? These are a bit niche. Sorry. Now here we have an octagonal room. It's a proper octagonal room, mind. It's a perfect octagon. None of your squares with the corners cut off rubbish. Oh no, that's the cheats way. You see this way here, that's just a square with the corners cut off, and you can see the diagonal lines are slightly longer than the orthogonal ones. No, wrong. This is a pure perfect octagon, and it took me quite a while to work out the geometry, and I'm not going to tell you how I did it because I enjoyed that process and I wouldn't want to rob you of it. But how do we get down to the next level? We've come down this corridor and into this room, but it appears to be a dead end. Is there no way down? There is, because wait, what's this? My spot hidden has revealed that there is some sort of chute. It has wooden doors that have a little chock thing there which can bar them closed, but because I'm me, I've actually made these as working hinges, and you can open it up and there is a 45-degree slope down into inky blackness. And, well, will you dare dive down that chute? Where do you think you'll end up? Here we have a couple of clip-on fireplaces that I made, which I rather like. They've got a good strong wooden lintel so that they don't collapse. They've got a grate made out of staples, and they've got big holes in the top, you see, so if anyone wants to do a Santa Claus entrance, well, they can. And these clip onto the walls like that, and if you were to have two of these in one room, well, it would be ever so cosy. I would recommend that you make several of these in a few different widths. It's just a couple of steps. They will get you out of a lot of fixes if one thing doesn't quite match up with another, a door isn't quite the right height, some stairs don't quite reach, or whatever. A few of these will get you out of a lot of fixes. Constructions like this that are open on one side and have three walls can be quite handy. Now you may think that this breaks the grammar that I've been talking of before, of the complete room and doing everything with adding doors, but of course if you've got a wall you can always add an extra room on like that, stick in a door, and hey presto, it all matches up absolutely fine. And I created quite a few rooms with this standard 4-inch, that's 20-foot gap in, and so you can have a stepped end to a room, or you can have a simple closed rectangular end to a room, or how about a half of an octagon end to a room, or how about this room which has a sort of raised area, stage up to a throne or something like that. A rounded end cap like this has 101 uses. It could be a niche, or it could be perhaps the slightly fancier end to a corridor. But I have found more useful is this. It's the same thing, but it's got an entranceway through it, and it goes to a squared off end like that, so it can butt up against some other thing. So this can become now the fancy entrance to the gents, and that can then be the fancy end also of a corridor. And on its own, that is a rather interesting shape of room. I glued two thicknesses of the foam together to make a 2-inch thick slab, and then set up my cutting jig to cut a circle out of this bit and created this room. And then, having cut this circle out of it, I then created this room, which is, as you can see, is exactly 1/2 inch smaller. And from that I created this room, and from that I created this room, and from that I created this room, and from that I created this room. Yes, they don't all store neatly inside each other, unfortunately, because I found that it was very useful to do this with the entrances, give them a flat bit there for connecting to the rest of the dungeon. So, sorry, what's that? You need two large circular rooms that are exactly the same size? Oh, you swine. Having just a really big room seemed like a good idea, but rather than just a plain massive rectangle which didn't look right to me, I decided that this would be far more interesting and multi-purpose. You can put entrances in all manner of places. You can get in to the side there, or possibly you can get in through there. And if you want to block a bit off, well, you can just block a bit off like that, or with rubble or something. And you could break it up by putting pillars in it. You could have pillars like that, for example, or perhaps you could even create quite a big, interesting space there with a corridor going around and lots of little rooms. And notice, there you go, there's an example of when one of those little short stairs will get you out of a fix. Ta-da! Much more useful than the big rectangle, I'd say, and much more interesting to look at. And, the tactical possibilities.